No boat building video is complete without a picture of the sailing ship. This is the USS Constitution, a frigate, and still a commissioned ship in the United States Navy. Hi everybody, welcome back to Jenkins Boat Works. I am Chuck Jenkins. In this episode, we're going to continue working on the Chesapeake 18. This is a CLC kayak that we got as a kit, and we're building it for a fellow, Rusty, you may have seen in one of the other videos, who's going to be using it in the MR 340. This is a race down the Missouri River, 340 miles from Caw Point in Kansas City all the way to St. Charles. We are building a rocket ship. We had a very productive weekend. I will apologize now for some of the noise in some of the clips. It was raining almost the entire time. This shop has a metal roof and you hear all of it. So there's nothing much we can do about that, but that's what the extra noise is. We got the deck on. We will show how we did epoxy work to seal up the seam between the side panels and the deck. And so we're pretty excited about it. It's really starting to look very sleek, beautiful. It's got wonderful lines. So pretty excited about it. We're making big progress. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing. You can like the little bell down below, hit the little bell, and I think it's on that side, and get updates about future videos. If you're coming back, we're glad you're here. So anyway, let's jump in and see what kind of progress we've made. The rear deck is going on. That's awesome. Using these little bronze boat nails, and we marked what is the halfway point on that bulkhead in there, if you can see that, and the halfway point on the deck, so we think we got it centered pretty well. All right, that's a 24-inch radius. Now, that was a good learning experience because the tricky part is here at the front. It's a 16-inch radius. You can see from this deck beam here that that's a heck of an arch. We're going to have to really bend this piece of plywood. So, it's going good though. So last night, we got the deck on. And it was kind of chaotic, so we didn't get a lot of video. But as we know, this front deck had a 16-inch radius, so we used these tie-down straps to hold it pretty much in its shape while we put the nails in, and those go into the shear clamp. The back part was on the 24-inch radius, and you can see it's not nearly as humped up. And then part of the trick was joining these two pieces together. You can see I've got a little screw up right here, but the combing is going to come sit on here, and I just don't think that we're going to have too much issue. We did put some little butt blocks in underneath. You see that one over there? And glued those in, so our transition from the 24-inch to the 16-inch radius is pretty good, and it looks funky with the way the plywood doesn't match up there in the cockpit, but at least it doesn't match up the same way on both sides, which tells me that we did pretty much get this plywood centered. And we have this little oak piece that we put on the back here, which we're going to use to mount a rudder. And I actually put a couple of bronze screws in to hold the back part of the deck down. I don't know if we got pictures of the front before we put the deck on, but I have a lovely little piece of mahogany as a breast hook up here, and it allowed me to be able to put a bronze screw in up here as well. So anyway, all in all, it just came out wonderful, and it's going to look an awful lot different once we get the edges trimmed off. But the next thing to do here is, well, I'm going to make some cradle straps like we've got for the canoe over here, so that we can flip this thing over, and then we'll put some epoxy in the crack in between where the deck and the side panels meet. And we got it pretty tight down on the shear clamp, but there's still a noticeable little crack, so we'll have to deal with that a little bit, but boy, all in all, it's just coming along great. So we've created some slings on the sawhorses. Just took a 8-foot 2x4, ripped it down the middle and made 1x2 out of it, and then cut it in half. So these are about 4 feet tall. Use the toe strapping and just taking some screws and screwing the strapping into the supports. And I may lift up the front just a little bit because we're just barely clearing the sawhorse there. I'm going to be interested to flip it over and see how she sits in there, flipped over. So anyway, just felt like we needed to get out the sawhorses, especially since now we're going to flip it over, and this deck is so curved. And the wood's not finished at all. I just didn't want to get marred by the 2x4s, and I think we can get it to lay in there a little more level on the slings. So the next thing now is going to be to take these straps off and pray that the epoxy is holding it and the nails are holding it and that we don't lose our shape. So we took the straps off, and she's holding her shape really nice. Looks really good. We only epoxied one towel to the boat, so that's a little bit of a problem. It's not a problem. We're just going to cut it off there and sand it off. I actually got a little bit of epoxy on the top here, and we glued a little bit of blue towel to that. It'll sand out. It's okay. Man, that's awesome. And she's sitting in her slings, so we should be able to just flip her over and fill these seams. Cool. Okay, so we got the boat flipped over, and we've got some issues here where there's just a little gap in this seam. And so before we go cutting this off of here, we're going to use it to our advantage. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing up some epoxy, and I've colored it. So it's pretty close to the color of the boat. And the way I did that is I first thickened it a little bit with just the total boat silica, and then I put some very fine cedar sawdust in here. And so hopefully it'll be less noticeable when we go and do cut this lip off and then round over the edge. So I thought about using some Total Boat Thixo, but it's white and I just don't want that in there. It would be easier because it's got a little nozzle. You can just get right in that crack and go. But I think what I'll do is pour this into a plastic, like a Ziploc bag, cut off the corner, and I should be able to, almost like a cake decorator type thing, I should be able to just squeeze a little bead right in there. And I don't need it everywhere, so I'm going to try not to get too carried away. But I think that should work pretty good. Okay, see, so now I've got it in this bag, and I cut off this corner down here, and I can feel this starting to warm up, so I need to move. But I think I'm going to start up here where I got a big gap. Let's see if we can just squeeze some right where we want it. getting more on there than I want. All right, so I am able to spread this just a little bit, and that's awesome. It's not so thick that it won't run back down in that crack. I'm actually able to save a little bit off of there. I don't want to get it too thick because it's just that much more I got to cut through and sand off, but we've got to have it sealed too, so it's kind of a fine line. Okay, so we've mixed up a couple of batches and used the plastic bag to apply it in these cracks between the panel, the side panel and the deck. And what I'm finding out is my finger is absolutely the best way to get this in here. So thank goodness for the gloves, but I can just run my finger along there, get any air bubbles out, just like that, smooth it, pick up some on the glove and move it up like up to the front where I was having a hard time getting it in here. My finger is exactly the perfect tool to come in here and smooth that out to a point where I'm not even going to mix up anymore because I was able to, places where it was too thick, I was able to move it and put it in where it goes. We've got a really nice seam and we don't have too much epoxy on there that's going to be difficult to get off later. I can't say enough about just using your finger. Worked great. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.